The discourse surrounding Tua Tagovailoa and Brock Purdy has become one of the biggest debates across the NFL landscape to start the season. You have Tua in Miami, who is powering the best offense in the league across the board through the first 5 weeks. They've scored the most points in the league through the first 5 weeks. They have the most passing yards, they have the most rushing yards, and they even dropped a historic 70 points on, yes, the Denver Broncos. And then across the West Coast is Brock Purdy, who has the 49ers as the third highest scoring team in the league and averaging the third most yards in the league as well, with 402.6 per game. So all seems pretty good, right? Both these quarterbacks are playing at a pretty high level. They're fueling their offenses to being the top of the league in many metrics, and they're getting the respect that they deserve across the NFL and social media. Well, it's not really that simple, and a lot of people are actually pushing back on how much credit Purdy and Tua deserve for their team's success through the first 5 weeks. And it's kind of a slippery slope for those that want to discredit what these quarterbacks have done to start this season. I already mentioned the rankings of both of their offenses, but individually, they're both playing like MVP candidates. Tua is completing 71.7% of his passes, is leading the league in passing yards with 1,600, is tied for second in passing touchdowns with 11, and has 5 interceptions and a 111.9 quarterback rating. You go over to Brock Purdy, and he's completing 72.1% of his passes for 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, and has the league leader in passer rating with 123.1. But those are just stats. How about advanced metrics? How about some analytics to help prove the point? Brock Purdy is first in the league in EPA per play and completion percentage above expected. And Tua Tagovailoa, he is third in those metrics. So when you take into account their offense as a whole, and then their stats and the efficiency that they're playing with to achieve those numbers, there's really not a lot of concrete evidence to discredit what Brock Purdy and Tua Tagovailoa have done to start this year. Across every database, across every stat, they're atop of the league and ahead of some really good quarterbacks that people have classified as the best in the league. And what makes it even harder to dispute is how well both of these teams have started the year. San Francisco 49ers are 5-0, and Brock Purdy has still yet to lose a regular season game dating all the way back to last year. And the Miami Dolphins find themselves at 4-1 with a game against the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. So the convenient argument that, hey, these guys are putting up really good numbers, but it's not leading to victories is not there. Take a guy like Kirk Cousins, for example, who has put up great numbers to start this season and is top 10 in EPA and completion percentage above expected. His team is 1-4, and his numbers haven't really led to a ton of success for his team. So with all of that in mind and how well these two players have performed at a team level and an individual level, how are people actually arguing that both of these quarterbacks are not playing at an elite level this season? Now, the biggest arguments that I've seen to discredit Tua and Brock Purdy's success to start this year is, for one, the system that they're playing in. Both the 49ers and the Dolphins offense derive from a West Coast offense that is now known as the Shanahan offense. It originated from Kyle Shanahan's dad, Mike Shanahan, who was coaching in the NFL for a very long time and is seen as one of the best offensive minds in NFL history. But the scheme is relatively pretty simple. It relies on a lot of quick throws over the middle of the field, along with misdirection and outside runs to keep the defense on edge. There's a lot of play action. There's a lot about getting your playmakers in space with the ball to maximize yards after the catch. But because this offense is reliant on the quarterback getting the ball out on time and in space to their playmakers and letting them do most of the work, I believe there's a negative stereotype regarding this type of offense and actually how difficult it is to run. The 49ers and the Dolphins aren't the only two teams in the league that run this type of offense. Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams run a very similar variant of this. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland, Arthur Smith in Atlanta, Shane Waldron in Seattle, and even Kevin O'Connell with the Minnesota Vikings. So it's not like the Dolphins and the 49ers are doing something schematically that is completely different from the rest of their peers. There's multiple teams in the league that are running similar things to these teams, but the combination of scheme, talent, and the quarterback play is what really separates these two teams from the rest of the league. Now, the Dolphins offense is specifically built around speed. They have two of the fastest wide receivers in the league in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They have a pair of really fast running backs in Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, and Mike McDaniel primarily uses that speed for crossers across the middle of the field and outside running plays for their fast running backs. You combine this scheme with the speed and the superpowers of Tua Tagovailoa, which are anticipation, accuracy, and time timing, and this offense has become one of the toughest to stop in recent memory. When it's clicking, you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle off free releases due to the motion that they run, and by the time Hill or Waddle are breaking into the middle of the field, Tua has already released the ball before they get out of their break, and the ball is hitting them on the numbers, and it's another first down. Purdy in San Francisco utilizes Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel across the middle of the field as well, but they use a lot more screens in the Dolphins because they have George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, who are both probably the best at their position and getting yards after the catch. But again, similar to Tua, Purdy has some really good strengths about him as well. His timing, his anticipation, and his accuracy are super elite as well. And it's clear from dating back to last year and now what these guys are doing again in their second years in the system that they've really mastered this offense and figured out what they need to do to get the ball out on time and accurately. But I just don't think it's one of those things where any average quarterback can step in and provide one of the top offenses in the league. We saw last year when Tua was out and missed multiple weeks that Teddy Bridgewater stepped in and he didn't have the same sort of success that Tua did. And I don't know if you forgot, but the 49ers drafted Trey Lance number 3 overall just back in 2021, and he wasn't even able to get on the field and actually properly learn and run this offense either. Jimmy G ran this 49ers offense and had some decent success, but even he didn't put up these sort of numbers that Purdy is putting up or even lead the 49ers to this efficient as an offense in his multiple years with the team. So while I do think any decent quarterback can step into these offenses and look competent, I do think what Tua and Purdy are doing are beyond that. And I believe where most of this criticism stems from is because Tua and Purdy aren't your traditional type of quarterback. We've seen it explode in recent memory of the fascination with 6'6" quarterbacks with fantastic arms, with fantastic athleticism, and I really think people have gotten almost brainwashed to believe that those are the only types of quarterbacks that can be successful and elite in the NFL. And Tua and Purdy are the opposite of those 6'6" freak athletic and freak arm athletes. They do not win playing backyard football like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen and making a crazy throw off their back foot 50 yards down the field. They win within the structure of the offense, inside the pocket, and they deliver strike after strike after strike. I mean, we saw this similar thing for years with Drew Brees, who went on to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. We saw it for so long with Tom Brady as well. You know, just 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks that stayed in the pocket, delivered the ball on time, were accurate with the football, had great anticipation, and for decades that won their teams multiple games, won Super Bowls for their teams. And yet we still find ourselves today discrediting those types of quarterbacks because the league now has more athletic quarterbacks than it probably ever has. And if you go back to last year and with how good Tua and the Dolphins offense played, and you go back to last year and look at how the 49ers offense played and Brock Purdy played and how they both carried it over to the start of this season, I think it's really foolish to not give these guys all of their credit for how they've been performing to start this season. Now, if defenses adjust and both of these offenses and both of these quarterbacks begin to sputter as we get on with the season, then hey, then we have some evidence that supports these quarterbacks not being as good as they've appeared so far the last 2 years. But as I'm making this video in the middle of October, I think it's nearly impossible to not consider Tua and Brock Purdy as top 5 quarterbacks so far this year. So that is how I believe Tua and Purdy are shattering the mold of the current day NFL quarterback and actually changing the league to getting back to more of a traditional pocket passer. But I'm going to leave you with this, my last mic drop argument. Take Tua Tagovailoa off the Miami Dolphins, put Patrick Mahomes on the Dolphins, put Josh Allen on the Dolphins, put any quarterback in their prime in NFL history onto the Dolphins roster. And if you are opposing that Tua and Purdy are not one of the top quarterbacks in the league this year, I want you to tell me with stats how much better the Dolphins offense would be with one of those quarterbacks other than Tua. How many more yards would they average than the NFL record through the first 5 weeks of the season, 513 a game? How many more points would they average through the first 5 weeks than 36.2? If it just has to do with the offensive weaponry, if it just has to do with the coaching staff and the scheme, how much better is it going to be than the historic offense that they've been through the first 5 weeks? I want to know the answer to that question, so if you disagree with me, please let me know in the comment section down below. But I've just seen this debate all across social media and wanted to give my side on it. Let me know what you think about Tua Tagovailoa and Brock Purdy, what they've both done to start this season. But subscribe to the channel if you're new, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.